Well, hey everyone, welcome to Church Tech.Life, a video for tech directors by tech directors. We're so glad you're here. Hey Phil, how's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. How are you this week?
I am just pumped. I'm really excited about this episode. We've got a really good one about Dante Comms, comms for your operators and your directors. So I'm jazzed that you guys are here. Every week we like to start out with a Bible verse. Phil, what do you got for us?
I've got something that I think is very timely. So we're going to turn to the book of wisdom. We're going to take a look at Proverbs today. So Proverbs chapter 13, verse 3, it says, "Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin." Wow, that's a very timely verse and stuff that I need to learn a little bit better.
Yeah, no kidding. The amount of self-control that you need to exhibit. No, I get that.
Especially when you're on comms talking.
That's right. That's right. When everybody can hear you and you don't have a choice.
Speaking of comms.
Yeah, that's right. I walked through the communication devices that we use for camera directors and for camera operators and other people in our tech team, and how we use it. Hopefully it's going to be helpful for you guys, and maybe we'll give you some ideas on how you can integrate it into your setup. All right, let's get into it. If you have more than one person on a team, they need to be able to communicate with each other to relay messages and give commands and instructions depending on what's going on stage or in your back production room. So intercoms give you a discrete, functional way for your team to communicate with each other and also not disturb anybody in the audience. The first position we're going to talk about is a director's seat. This is the person who gives all the commands to the camera operators as well as other technicians, whether in front of house or even in the audience or on the stage. They wear a single-eared headset with a microphone so they can talk to anybody who's wearing a headset. The announcer's console we're going to be talking about today is the Studio Technologies 234 announcer's console. This model is really neat because it has user-defined keys, user-defined encoders, and it's all Dante, so you can integrate it with your Dante network that's already existing on your stage and in your room. The first user-defined key mutes and unmutes the director's microphone, so that way when he wants to talk, he pushes channel 1 and he can talk to everybody wearing another headset, and then he can also turn it off there as well. Next piece of gear we're going to talk about is the Model 391 Dante Alerting Unit. It's much like the call light buttons of old that you would push the call button on your headset and then it would flash to say, hey, turn on your microphone, or hey, put on your headset, we need to talk to you. This is like a modern version of that. So if you push button number 4 on the announcer console, it'll make the light flash and tell everybody, hey, put on your headset, we need to talk to you. Or hey, service is about to start, put your headset on. We have 2 of those, one of them in the production control room right by the announcer's console, and one at front of house, so that way if the director needs to communicate with the people in front of house and they don't have their headset on, he can flash that light to tell them to put their headset on. Next piece of gear we're going to talk about is the Studio Technologies 373A Intercom belt pack. All the operators inside the worship center have one of these, as well as the PTZ operator in TV production. This is a really simple unit that has 2 knobs on it, one for channel 1 and for channel 2, labeled A and B. Also has a talk button so you can communicate with the director, and those knobs control the volume of the signals coming to you from the director or other belt packs. On the back it has an Ethercon connector to connect to your Dante network, as well as a headset input so you can wear your favorite 4-pin XLR headset. These packs don't have an external power supply, they're actually PoE. So you plug them into your normal Dante switch, and that sends PoE out to your belt pack. So you have 2 wires, one from your Dante network and one going to your headset. Each one of the camera operators have one of these packs on Sunday morning so they can get instructions from the director on where to point the camera, and if they need to adjust any settings on their camera, they can hear the instructions through the belt pack in their headset. And not just camera operators have belt packs, this is our lighting position where all of the lights in the worship center are controlled from. The operator wears one of these so we can get instructions from the director, or if he has some information that he needs to tell everyone on the crew, he can go on and tell everyone on channel A. Right next to his pack is one of those alerting units as well, so if someone in production control room needs to get a hold of the tech booth, he can flash that light and everybody puts on their headset. This is our iMag and projection station. This operator also wears a headset at all times during the service. That way they can relay information to the director and other people on the crew, but also hear directions from the camera operators and the director. So we can't just buy 2 of these packs and put them on the Dante network and expect them to work, because they need a main brain, something to tell them how to route the channels, and that exists outside of Dante. So to accomplish this, we use the 5422A Dante Intercom audio engine from Studio Technologies, and this tells all of the packs where to route themselves and how to not interfere with other things on the Dante network. Here you see a shot of our Dante network. You see the alert lights, the audio engine, and all the belt packs right in line as receivers and transmitters, because they need to transmit data to each other and they need to receive audio signal as well. So here's the deal. We also need some wireless units as well. And Studio Technologies, as of this moment, does not make any wireless Dante packs. So I decided to go with the HollyLand SolidCom M1 full duplex intercom system. We bought 4 wireless belt packs from HollyLand with a LEMO connector on the bottom, where you connect a headset with a LEMO cable on the bottom. They're small and discreet, and they fit on everybody's belt. They don't sound as good as the Studio Technologies stuff, but they're wireless, so that's the trade-off. All of the SolidCom M1 belt packs sit on a cute little charging station and all charge all at once. Now the receiver for the HollyLand SolidCom M1 is huge, and so we needed to hide it upstairs in our catwalks above our worship center. We have 2 XLR Dante lines going to it, one to transmit Dante to the receiver, so that way everybody on the Studio Technologies Dante gear can talk to the HollyLand system, and then one coming out of the HollyLand system into Dante. That way everybody on the Studio Technologies stuff can hear what the wireless units are saying. So you have one line going to the HollyLand system and one coming out of it back into the Dante network.
Wow, that was a ton of information, and it was really good information, and boy, do I have questions.
All right, hit me. What do you got?
All right, so my first question is, why comms? Why not just use radios or cell phone? I mean, I can text really fast. Why not just text message between things?
Okay, so if it was just you and I, one guy directing and one camera operator, I've seen, and I've actually run a number of events where you just have a walkie-talkie with an earpiece, and that totally works just fine. But if you have multiple people on your crew, especially getting into 3, 4, 5, 6, we have potentially even 20 in some of our major events, that can get crowded really fast, and you can't afford to have any interference, any static on your comms when you're trying to communicate with your guys. If you're a director and you say, hey, I need this to happen, I need it to happen in a timely manner, but the other people are getting interference, static from something else in the area, from like a walkie-talkie, then that's unacceptable because they can't hear you. So having a closed audio network of comms, so that way nothing else can encroach on you and you're all by yourself and it's dependable, is by far the way to go. That's why a lot of industry standard practices include comms. Most concerts, most televised events, broadcast events, they use comms to talk to their operators and their technicians.
Well, why not send a text message between? Why not just do it that way?
Well, I don't know. You're pretty good. You might be able to text like this and read your text while you're operating a camera, but I sure can't. So I need to have someone talking in my ears telling me what to do instead of having to do this. It might be easier to take a selfie that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember we rolled out to a festival one time, and I got down there, and we forgot our comm units. So they were like, well, we got a bunch of radios, and I was like, we're going to have to make that do. That was the worst time. I did not enjoy that festival because we were constantly having issues trying to run off of radios. So
yeah, what kind of issues were we running into? Let's pretend someone were to go down the radio issue, the radio route. Well, what issues did you run into?
So one of the big issues was the clarity that came from them, because most radios are still analog, because you're really not running a digital radio most of the time. Whenever you rent them or whenever you have them, they're still an analog radio. So you're still coming in like this, trying to talk. And then you're in the middle of a concert, so even using one of those little cheap microphones where you're trying to talk on that little microphone, the sound coming from the stage, if you're running 105, 110 decibels at your front of house position, the sound coming into that's also picking up your PA, because it's made for, hey, yeah, parking lot detail, go. we had a ton of sound hitting those microphones. So what was hitting your ears was coming from that. So it was all distorted from the PA. And then whenever you're trying to talk, you're like, camera one, move in on this, and you got, and they're like, what? And you're going, ooh. So the whole time there was just no clarity. So it made communication next to impossible. So.
Whereas a specialized broadcast headset from a comm unit has a cardioid mic pointing right at your mouth. Then you have double ear specialized noise canceling or even isolating headphones that keep the only sound that you hear as an operator, the director, whatever's on the comms.
Yeah. So that actually does bring up, I mean, you almost read my notes. When would you use a 2-ear and when would you use a single ear? Do you have preferences on that?
Yeah, for sure. So we are not a loud service. We only tickle about 89 dB peaking on a Sunday morning, so we're really not that loud. But that is loud enough that if you only had a headset with one ear on, this other ear that's open that has the rest of the room in it, that's going to be loud and it's going to be hard for the operator to pick up what the commands are getting from this headset and everything else going in the room. So all the camera operators have a 2 headset on. Now in the director's seat, I'm not in the room. If I'm in a separate room altogether, and so it's not 100 dB, even 90 dB like we have. It's pretty low, and so you can have a single ear, so you can hear what's going on. You have to be able to listen to the music as a director, because what I'm doing is I'm listening. Okay, there's a violin solo coming up. I need to get that shot. So I have one ear pointed toward the speakers by the multi-view, and I have another ear that's closed so I can hear, number one, I can hear myself, which is side tone. That's what side tone is me hearing myself in the headset. I can hear myself, but then also if someone talks to me, I can hear it in my ear as well. Because the way we're set up, we have the director, and then right next to him is the PTZ camera operator, the remote control camera system. He is right next to me, and if I need to talk to him, I need to look over and I have to be able to hear him not through the headset, but actually with my ear. And so I need to have one ear open and one ear closed. So for the director, PTZ operator, they're all single ear. For the operators and the camera operators in the worship center, that's 3 cameras. They have closed ears, so that way they only hear me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. But that does bring up a good point. You can run, and this will actually turn into a question, but you can run the program feed back into your comm units so that because you are isolated whenever you have 2 ears on and you're running camera, so you can't hear some of the nuances. Like if somebody says something from the stage, hey, brother so-and-so, why don't you pray? Well, your cam ops just did not hear that because they're a little bit isolated. So do y'all run your program feed back into your comms for your cam ops to hear?
So we do not. And it's only because the director in the back of the room is calling all the shots and he can hear what, hey, brother so-and-so, you need to pray. And so all of the direction is coming from the director, and the comm operators or the camera operators are literally just waiting for instruction on what to do. And so if it was, if they had more freedom to find shots or find things that are different, then it would totally make sense to pump the program audio, whatever is going to the speakers or live stream, back in their headset so they can kind of hear stuff. But honestly, with our environment, because they're getting their instructions from someone else, they don't need to have program feed pumped back to them.
Yeah, when I did concerts, a lot of times I would pump program back into it so my ops would be able to hear. At the church I'm at right now, we don't have program pumped back in either because they're taking their direction in from our director as well. So same type of process there.
I think one of the big things too is that we know exactly what's coming up. We are not flying by the seat of our pants, guessing what instrument's going to be up, who's taking a solo, what's going to happen. There isn't a lot of spontaneity in our service because it's all planned out. We know that song 1, this person has a solo. Song 2 has an instrumental and it focuses on oboe, something like that. And so the director knows to hit those cues, and so it's not like we're guessing and waiting for something to play, and then camera ops have to find it. Because it's all pre-planned out, they don't need to have that freedom because it's all pre-planned out beforehand.
So you did talk about channel 1 and channel 2 going out to your packs. What do you have on channel 1 and what do you have on channel 2, if anything?
Sure. So right now, the way it's set up, and this could change, is all of the comm operators and the director are all on channel 1. They're all sharing channel 1. And that's because me being the director on a Sunday morning, I speak to everyone and everyone needs to hear what I'm doing. Now, that doesn't mean that everything pertains to every operator at all times. Like for instance, if camera 2 is out of focus, well, the lighting guy who's on a headset doesn't care, right? However, if I need to say, yo, I just got this intel that Lamar is going to pray after this song, well, everyone needs to know that, including the lighting guy. And so everyone is tuned in to channel A at all times, regardless of what's going on. That way, if there's any information that comes across, everybody gets it. Now, with channel 2, the way we've got it set up right now is our talkback mic from the sound guy. So the microphone that he uses to talk to the instruments and the singers on stage, his microphone, the music director, the guys who is running stems and the metronome and running Ableton on stage, when he's communicating with the band, that's on channel 2, and our lead worship pastor is also on channel 2 as well. And the reason being is during rehearsal, if they're making changes to the songs or the setup or something like that, I can easily tune in wherever I'm at. I can tune into channel 2 and listen to what they're doing, especially if I'm out of the room. If I'm back in that production control room and I can't hear what's going on, I can tune into their microphones, that whole sum, and I hear it all. And then I don't necessarily use it during a Sunday morning, during actual service, just because I don't need it. But for those prep times, it's great.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of video at boxing matches and UFC matches. And one of the things that we had was we had somebody at ringside that was kind of producing the show. And he would say, you know, roll tell of the clip or roll stats or roll instant replay type stuff. So I wanted everybody to hear that, but I didn't want him to hear all of my camera ops jibber jabber. So I had him on his own channel that piped to my camera ops so my camera ops could hear him, but he could not hear my camera ops talking. We could just hear him. And then from the director's seat, I could also talk with the person that was down at ringside doing stuff. So that's also another way that you can do things if you ever get into a fight in your church.
Coming to a church near you, Sunday.
Sunday. So, PoE, you referenced that a couple of times. What does PoE stand for and why do I care?
Yeah. So this is a PoE, which is power over Ethernet. Basically, what it allows you to do is to send power from your switch, from your network switch, where all your network devices plug into, and it's able to power through the same cable that sends and receives signal to that device. It also powers it as well. There's different ratings for it, and so depending on how much juice the device needs, you need to get different levels of PoE. What's nice is usually they'll tell you exactly how many watts it needs, and then all your switches will be able to tell you how much it can produce. So when you're building out your system or speccing it out, you'll want to make sure, okay, well, these take this many watts, and so I need a PoE switch that can support that. But what's nice is these little packs really don't take that much juice because they're not doing that much. So what's nice is all of the switches that we had in place already were PoE capable, and they weren't that much more than something that was non-PoE.
All right, one of the things that we do try to do is we try to ask some basic questions, but I do want to ask a question that's a little bit more advanced when we start getting into network and Dante. So for those of you that we start speaking Greek on for a minute, please forgive us, and we'll try to make this as basic as we can.
One of the things I want to encourage too is if you are reaching into the Dante world for the first time, Dante has some really good certification courses that you can go through and learn everything you need to know when you're building a Dante setup. Phil and I both got level 3 certified, which is the highest you can get. And it was great. Honestly, you don't have to go to level 3. They have level 1 and level 2 that make you completely prepared for anything it'll throw at you. But then if you need to go into some advanced stuff, you can go on to level 3. But I do recommend that if you're going to go into Dante and start diving into that world, you need to get certified. That way you can know what's going on, and because there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through to make it work correctly.
Yeah, I require all my front of house guys in the worship center to be Dante level 1 certified. They don't have to be 2 and 3, but I do require level 1. But so asking a little bit more of a difficult question, I know you're familiar with vLans. Can you VLAN off your audio and your Dante networks from each other so that the traffic isn't flowing the same?
You can. What's nice is our Dante infrastructure is robust enough that it wasn't terribly necessary. We're not hitting the capacity of those switches at all. And so I'm not in any fear of overloading them or sending too much information out or even having cross network traffic that's interfering with each other just because Dante is so reliable. If that was a concern of yours, you could set up a VLAN and set up those separately from your network. What I do encourage though is the more intense and more complicated your network gets, when it's time for troubleshooting, when you're there on a Sunday morning and you say, oh my gosh, something broken, I don't know what's going on, and you have all this detailed, complicated, intricate networking stuff together that you have to troubleshoot in 10 seconds, that sets you up for failure. Whereas the more simple it is, the easier it is to troubleshoot within that 10-second time frame. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just, but everything, all of your devices show up on the same Dante, on the same controller. So are you having to comb between a whole lot of audio stuff? Because we've got, I'm going to pull a number out of the air, and I think I'm close, but I've got like 25 devices for transmitters and receivers, separately. So adding a bunch of comms to that as well, and then trying to troubleshoot that, even if you just put them on a different subnet so that a computer was running it off of a different subnet, I would think would make it a little bit easier for troubleshooting, because you go, this is a comm issue, so it's on this controller. This is an audio issue, so it's on this controller.
Honestly, what I would do is, if I was concerned about that, I would harken back to my old analog days and totally set up a totally different network, different switches, different cables, and so that way I don't have to worry about them ever touching or setting up any mumbo jumbo in the network that can potentially fail. If you know that this switch and this line is your comms, your Dante comms, even though it's still running Dante, you have still 2 instances of Dante that you don't have to switch between or worry about running into networking issues because it's set up incorrectly or you made a change and it doesn't reflect anymore. So yeah. I would say in that instance, set up a completely separate network, put another Dante controller computer on that network, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that is a good idea. But you also do have different layers. There are many different solutions to that same problem, which is also kind of good if you dive into to start looking at. So I'd like to kind of talk our way through the HollyLand connection. How is that connected again? Let's kind of talk our way through that.
Sure. So HollyLand does not have an analog XLR input to input audio signal and output audio signal on the base station itself, on the big receiver box. So what we have to do is dive in the manual, and they provide a schematic to hook up their Ethercon network RJ45 cable, and then what is the pinout for 2 XLR heads, 1 incoming and 1 outgoing, 1 input and 1 output. We had to make a custom cable with 1 head that was an XLR female and 1 head that was XLR male, put it on there, solder it together, so that way we could actually put it on there. It wasn't homemade or MacGyvered. It was a recommended solution from HollyLand. However, it's not something that would be very easy for someone who's just, a run-of-the-mill layman at the church who's never soldered before, just because it is a little funky. It would be really nice if HollyLand were to come out with a cable that's already pre-made, that has the RJ45 on one side that plugs into their unit, and then has a tail on the back end with an XLR male and an XLR female on the side. So we might contact HollyLand and say, hey, this would be a good idea for you.
Could you do it with one of those like Dave Rat analog boxes where it's a RJ45 plugging in and then it's got the XLR out? Would the pin configuration line up for you to be able to do it like kind of an off-the-shelf solution like that?
Possibly. The catch would be is you need to look up the schematic from the Dave Rat box and say, okay, does this pinout match what HollyLand is recommending in their manual? Otherwise, it just won't work. So that would be something I would recommend. It's just easier to build a custom cable based on what HollyLand sent you in the user manual to say, okay, this is definitely going to work. Whereas the Dave Rat stuff, it's really not built for that.
So the brain for the Dante Comms and the HollyLand, how are you making those connections and getting all that connected together?
Gotcha. So both the HollyLand and the Studio Technologies rack station has a web app and an application you can download onto your Windows computer that you configure all of the channels and the gain and noise gate and side tone functions with. Because with all the packs, you don't have that functionality really on that pack. You have to do it on the web interface. So, but it does give you the options like with side tone, which is hearing yourself through the headset, with gain. So that way, if you're using different headphones that they recommend, you can bring the gain up and down both for your headset, stuff going to your headset, and also your microphone. You can enable and disable phantom power, that kind of thing. So especially like, for instance, the Announcers Council has a microphone input on the back. So you can have a full-size microphone like a SM7B or even a SM58 or something similar, or a headset mic if you really wanted to, that you really liked, and you can plug that directly into the Announcers Console in TV production as the director, and then use that to talk to your comms. You turn phantom power on and off for that in the web application, as well as adjusting gain and then noise gate, compression, that kind of thing. So the web app is actually pretty good. As techs, we've kind of run into some incredible pieces of gear that run forever and they do exactly what you want, and then you go into their web app and it just stinks. It's like, man, did the same company build both of these? It's not the case with with the Studio Technology stuff. It's just rock solid. The HollyLand also has a web app. It's a little more limited in what it can do, but it's also not built to be incredibly customizable just because it's not built for that. The Studio Technology gear is built to be expandable and mutate and change for a whole bunch of different situations, whereas the HollyLand stuff is literally just built for one purpose. You've got a whole bunch of packs and one receiver, and you call it a day. So you can adjust things like grouping channels, you can adjust gain, things like that. But yeah, what's nice is you can adjust all that beforehand. The catch is that it's not as easy as during a service. If it's too loud or something, you have to go back either during a sound check or something like that and adjust it on the computer. So you just got to know that going in.
All right, now I'm going to throw a curveball at you. You ready?
Hit me.
What would you do differently with this setup if you were starting over again, knowing what you know now?
I think I would have set up a separate Dante network, like we talked about, so that way it's a physically different switch and a different lines altogether just run right next to the old ones. Reason being is for troubleshooting, and because the Dante network is so important. That's our lead pastor's mic. That's our lead worship pastor's mic. And if anything were to interfere with that, if we had any issues, that's a huge deal. And so if you totally separate it out, you won't have those issues. I would have spent a little more on the HollyLand units. The units are great, but when you have a stark difference in sound quality, both in the headphones that you're listening to and the microphones, if you compare the Studio Technology stuff and the HollyLand stuff, the difference is night and day. This one sounds like, the HollyLand sounds like entry level, and the Studio Technology stuff sounds like it's real, like it's actually pro level. So I would have spent a little more than that, but we did it on a budget. The other thing too is there were a lot of really cool units out there that Studio Technologies made. They had some units with microphones on the announcer console with a gooseneck mic. It had a speaker on the unit itself, and so you can hear the Channel A's audio on the console itself, so you don't need an outside speaker. It would have been nice to upgrade to some bigger and more capable announcer consoles or belt packs, that kind of thing. So as far as changes go, I have no regrets because we did it on a great budget. But if money was no object, it would have been nice to get something a little beefier just to give our guys more options and not have to jump so many hoops to get it working. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought I was going to throw you a curveball, and you just like stepped right up and said, "Hey, this is what I would do." Like you'd planned it out. So
No, funny
he
story.
really
I
didn't know
did
that
it.
question was coming.
I did
So-
not know it was coming.
And then you just stepped it out of the park and went,
That was easy.
That's
Just
right.
like
Well, see, maybe I just live with regret my whole life. Maybe that's the whole thing, man.
Well, it's been great walking through this. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed seeing all the stuff that you've come out with whenever it comes to your comm units. I know you've been excited about these for a while now, and getting them in and putting them into place. That's really good. So I'm happy for you. Glad that went in. We're still in the analog days on our comms, so I don't see us upgrading into Dante anytime soon. But maybe one day we'll put on our big boy pants and do it.
Dante Comms are a fairly new development in the production world, just because analog units like ClearCom have been around for 30 years. Before I was born, they were around in the 70s, you know? And so and they were the industry standard for a long time. And so there's a reason why you saw them everywhere. Where now they're getting some real competition with like Studio Technologies, RDL, other groups like that to say, you know what? We can do this for cheaper and keep the quality high. Now, I am curious to see what other Dante offerings there are in the future. I really had never seen any. Have you seen any Dante comms at all? Like before I started talking about it?
So kind of. So back whenever I worked for the labs,
Yeah.
they were really pushing us towards the Dante comms with another company. And then whenever I tried to push that through security, our cybersecurity people were like, "You're not putting comms across networks." So that got shot down pretty quick. But I was real excited about the stuff they were talking about then.
Yeah, we'll see if someone hacks into our system, listening to our comms, they'll just hear me talking about Jesus. So compared to some government secrets that you've got. So
Yeah. I have no secrets I can discuss.
at least on YouTube you can't. The big thing too is that there is nothing wrong with analog comm units. We ran them for literally. We had an old ClearCom unit from 1987, and it ran great. We used it every Sunday up until a month ago, and that's because we went to this Dante unit. And honestly, it ran great for literally 29 years. We had very little issues with it over those 29-year period. That's incredible for a piece of gear. Like, oh my gosh, can you tell me any piece of gear that you have that you'll say, man, that'll be running 29 years from now? I can't think of one. You know, maybe this microphone. You know, maybe, if I take care of it. So, honestly, that is a huge feat. Now, granted, the reason why we replaced it was because it was getting static, pieces were falling apart, we couldn't find pieces for it anymore, and it made sense to replace it. And I wanted to go with a ClearCom option, but the price was just outrageous. It was 40 grand for comms, starting, and going up from there, just from what we were trying to do. And I'm like, that's not a good use of God's money, because I have so many other things that we could be using 40 grand for missions, for planting churches, for equipping the body. We don't need to be spending that on headsets and microphones, man. So doing it on a budget and getting a better quality through Dante, through the Studio Technology stuff, was just great. So I really encourage you guys, if you've got analog comms already and you're thinking about upgrading, but they're fine, maybe reconsider a little bit, because it's still going to do the same thing. It's not going to make your life so much easier just because it's new. Now, if it's broken or you don't have them at all, then totally look at it. But if you're just upgrading just to upgrade, you might want to rethink it, pal.
And, I did ask the question earlier about why not a radio and why not a cell phone, because honestly, I hear that from people a lot whenever you start talking about comms. They're like, oh, well, we're just going to use our cell phone in service. I'm like, that's never going to work out for you. So really take a look at a good set of comms, and don't settle for trying to do radios. Don't try to settle for doing cell phones. If at all possible, move into even an inexpensive wired comm. They make them out there. A soundboard that has some microphones and headphones. There's some ingenious ways that you can make some things work as well, on a low budget as well, if comms are just out of reach as well.
I want to say one more thing. Studio Technologies did not sponsor this video. We're not paid by anyone to promote their gear. These are our opinions, and we like them. That's why I'm speaking so highly, because I've had a really good experience, and I want to tell you guys. Maybe one day they'll sponsor something, but today they are not. And so all these opinions that we're giving you are our own. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I had a really good time making this video. Hopefully it helped you guys out. Phil, do you have anything to say before we get out of here?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Beautiful. Great, guys. Thank you. We'll see you next month.
Have a good one.